Hello and welcome to Volleyball State, a look at the sport of volleyball in 6 rotations and a proud part of the I-80 Club. I'm Jeff Sheldon.
And I'm Lincoln Arneal.
We got a free show this week, free for all you volleyball fans. And this week we've got a great guest. We're talking with longtime Director of Operations for Nebraska Volleyball and fellow Southeast Nebraska small town kid, Lindsay Peterson. We talk a wide-ranging conversation with Lindsay, talking about the transition from John Cook to Dani Busboom Kelly, what exactly a Director of Volleyball Operations does, and what she has to do in Hawaii when everyone takes off for spring practice. So we'll get to that here in just a couple minutes, but we have a lot that we're covering on the show today. Lincoln, you want to run folks through some of the things that we're going to be putting in their inbox and on their phones?
Yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time in rotation one with Lindsay, going great interview with her. Like you kind of mentioned there too, but we'll also get into the pro volleyball world. We're getting down the home stretch of that, checking in with the 2 local Nebraska teams and what's going on in those leagues. There's a little bit of college volleyball news as well. We'll sprinkle at the end. So we're kind of transitioning. Nebraska transitioned from beach to indoor right now. So we're just getting access to that right now. So not a lot of news to share, but a lot going on in the volleyball world because there is no off season.
Absolutely. And if you love volleyball content all 12 months of the year, not just during the college season or the summer when international volleyball happens, we encourage you to become a patron, a subscriber to Volleyball State at patreon.com/I80 Club. You get bonus content like this, but a little bit more frequently. We also are going to, we've already put out a couple of Volleyball State subscriber newsletters. So you get the printed word right in your inbox. We do some live Q&As on the I80 Club Discord. We did our first one of those earlier this month. And if you ask a question there and we're not able to get to it in the chat, we'll bring it up onto the show. And so this is a way for you that you can interact with us even more than ever before. Also, starting this fall, we're going to be doing some live recaps after matches. And Lincoln, we haven't talked about this yet. There's a couple opportunities coming up here at the end of April and into May. Nebraska playing their exhibition spring schedule. Maybe we should pilot that for one of the spring matches too.
Yeah, for sure. We'll come on right after the match and do almost like a mini version of our podcast, just instant reaction, instant thoughts, takeaways from the match too. So, we're just, was it 3.5 weeks away from Nebraska's first spring match? So it's coming up soon. So, all of this available $5 a month at patreon.com/I80 Club. That's patreon.com/I80. There's no dash in there, club. Yeah.
And I don't think I would be out of line in saying that we're going to be recording another bonus show later on in April. Plus, we're working on getting some interviews lined up that we're going to bring to everyone. There's still plenty of volleyball stuff out there that we want to get to in the month of April. And we think April is going to be a pretty busy month, both here on the free feed and in the I80 Club subscriber tier. So yeah, like Lincoln said, $5 a month, a mere pittance to satiate all your volleyball needs at patreon.com/I80 Club. You can also follow us all year long for free on social media. You can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky and TikTok, all at Volleyball Pod. You can follow Lincoln at Lincoln_VB on the social channels. And Lincoln, you also do some writing as well for Huskers Illustrated. What have you been working on lately?
I did kind of, when Nebraska started their indoor practices last week, kind of the 5 main topics that had me intrigued or things to look at. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit later, but so that I write Substack on some professional volleyball news and do some other things for the magazine as well too. I just did a great story that's coming out in the April edition of Huskers Illustrated about the 1974-75 Nebraska swimming program too. So the first people who qualified for the national meet as individuals. So I dabble in some old-timey sports and other sports than just volleyball.
Absolutely. Check out all of Lincoln's writings at Huskers Illustrated, also his Substack, and he covers the Supernovas as well for Herd at Sport. So, like, if there is a volleyball bouncing in the state of Nebraska, Lincoln Arneal has probably been around it recently. Hey, coming up in a little bit, we're going to talk about professional volleyball. We're going to preview Nebraska's upcoming spring matches, but we need to start in rotation 1, where all great programs start, and that is our interview with longtime Director of Volleyball Operations for Nebraska, the brain trust right now behind Husker Volleyball, Lindsay Peterson.
All right, we are joined now by Nebraska Director of Volleyball Operations, Lindsay Peterson. Lindsay is entering her 20th season this fall. She's been with Nebraska for 19 years, doing whatever it takes to make the Nebraska volleyball program run. She's the wizard behind the curtain, making sure everything gets done. And yeah, so Lindsay, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you on Volleyball State today.
Thanks for having me. When you say 20 years, I'm like, geez, I am getting old. It's kind of crazy, but man, how things have changed over that time period. So
we feel it too, for sure. When you say like, hey, how long have you guys covered volleyball? And we're like, well, the first time we did it was like 2002. So, oh my God, that's been over 20 years. So yeah, it beats the alternative is what I like to tell people of not being around for 20 years.
Yeah, my first column, I think, for the Daily Nebraskan was about the first year there was libero, and you got to wear the special libero jersey, and how it was like, why is she wearing a different color out there? So
I know everyone thought I just forgot my uniform or something. What was wrong with me? I didn't.
Did you ever forget the libero jersey? It would probably be easy to do.
I didn't ever forget it, but I mean, back then they created like this. It was like a soccer jersey, I think, and it was this crazy. It wasn't just the opposite color of that night. Everyone was trying to come up with this creative jersey as wild as can be, so you would really stick out like a sore thumb. And so everyone would always joke like, are you sure you're not supposed to be on the soccer field? That's not a volleyball uniform.
I remember with that, I think Snoop Dogg came and performed, and he was wearing the libero jersey when he performed at the old Pershing Auditorium. So that's got to be up there in the career highlights, I'm sure, for you. So
you had to wash it like 3 times once you got it back from him, probably.
Good thing I had a couple sets. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Lindsay, we talked kind of, you're the person who handles a lot of the day-to-day operations of the volleyball program. I mean, imagine Nebraska fans. I think I sent a tweet out saying former Nebraska coach John Cook, and people are still getting used to that. I mean, you've kind of lived that. What's been kind of the biggest change for you in the last couple of months, kind of your job and kind of how you're working with a new head coach for the first time in your tenure?
Yeah, it's obviously been a big change because from playing to working with John, I was with him for basically 20 of those 25 years. And I joke that we almost shared a brain sometimes. I just could walk in and kind of know what the trajectory of the day was going to be and what our first conversation would be. And I mean, I obviously knew his expectations for this program and for his athletes. And so it was, kind of a well-oiled machine. I felt like there wasn't a lot of questions asked. He just knew I was taking care of stuff. And if there was questions, we'd come together. But I felt a lot of times I could answer questions people had for John without asking John. And now I'm in that, phase of trying to learn how Dani wants things. Obviously, the expectations of Nebraska volleyball are still very high, but everybody runs their program differently and it looks different. And so seeing what she envisions for my position and the expectations for that, and if they are similar to what John wanted, or if there's I'm sure there'll be a little variation in some of the stuff, but for the most part, I think the transition so far has been very smooth. It's still very fresh. We've only been in the gym for a few days now with spring ball. So I think everybody's starting to see and realize the change has occurred. It might have not as been so obvious right away because we were in beach, and a typical beach season, John, was a little more hands off, and Dani was kind of that same way, coming in and trying to get settled and get everything in place before spring season started. So this spring is going to be a learning curve for all of us, and we're all trying to figure out what going to make this staff great and how we can balance each other's strengths and weaknesses. And but yeah, it's been a change. Like, I still some days walk in and think I'm going to walk in and see John sitting there because I did for so many years. And so those first few days of walking in and not seeing his name on his office was definitely a shock. And but I would say since the transition now and everyone's starting to get a little more comfortable, things have been it's very smooth. Nothing's really missed a beat.
Lindsay, before we get too deep into the weeds of maybe what the last couple of months of the program has been like, for people who aren't really familiar with, they might be familiar with your name, but maybe not exactly what you do. And director of volleyball operations can mean a lot of different things at a lot of different programs. Could you give us just a little bit of a breakdown of what exactly your job is and maybe even how it's changed over those 20 years you kind of mentioned at the start?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I think this position wears a different hat in every program because it's based off of what your head coach needs or views and is important to them. And so it is all the logistics behind the scenes. So I think most people would say dealing with travel and equipment and scheduling and, some facet, whether it be managing the budget to actually running the budget, to the just day-to-day of the program, the phone calls, the paperwork, all that. I think a director of ops job is there to make the coach's job easy and to be focused on coaching, watching film, helping develop the athletes and prepare for opponents. Our job is all the other stuff. Now, I've seen that change for sure over the years. Like a head coach does not do what a head coach did 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The focus was, development of the athlete and trying to prepare for opponents and how do we get better and, video and recruiting. Now there's so many different areas. I mean, it's great that volleyball has becomes, has grown as a sport and has gotten so much attention in the media, but there's a big media presence all the time and demand for interviews. And there's the, yeah. And just managing now the direction of college athletics with NIL and possible revenue share. And you're dealing more with, donors and people than you used to in the past. And agents even now are a thing that you never even thought about. And social media is a whole nother beast and everything you have to do with that. So I don't feel like the coach today, like I feel like the head coach today is like a sports psychologist, part nutrition, part, physical therapist or strength coach. I mean, always trying to get better in those areas and the athletes are changing and the state of the athlete when they're coming in, I mean, the pressures are greater. And so managing those expectations are different than in the past. And so that's, I would say, how my job has changed the most. I mean, when I started, it was just the bare bones of the logistics. And then it started transitioning into more mentoring also with some captains and players. And then it turned into, being in practice and helping watch dynamics of the staff or the team and trying to help with, what I see from that. And then changes of conferences and adding teams into conferences and how that changes travel, how that changes budget. The TV contracts have completely changed over the years and that, so it's a job that I think that's one reason why I love it. And what has made it so fulfilling is it's constantly changing, but it's definitely from the first day to now, I feel like the impact I can make on the student athlete is definitely greater these days than it was when I first started, just because of everything that has changed in the sport and how the demands of the coaches have changed so much. More stuff falls back onto my position. At least it has for me at Nebraska.
And we've seen college athletics change so much just in the last 4 or 5 years with NIL, and now revenue sharing comes into play or is expected to come into play this summer. You mentioned some of the financial aspects of the position. Have you had to do very much with NIL discussions or creating that kind of budget or talking directly with players and their families, or does someone else within the program handle that?
Well, that's kind of the crazy thing is that when NIL first came in, I mean, that was nothing we could talk about. So we didn't handle that. That was strictly on the collectives and people reaching out to the athletes and setting up NIL deals. Like, wasn't us doing it. And so that conversation didn't have to take place. It was more, the conversation was more, how do we manage this and make sure it doesn't come into our locker room, change our culture, affect our expectations, that the focus of our team and the mission of our team and program is the same, with this outside interference being, it's a good thing, but it definitely creates some distraction and interference in your program. So it was more the discussions were more about managing that than, getting people in aisle. But now, as you see the tides turning, I mean, it's almost kind of the Wild West, and those conversations can start to happen. There's, as revenue share comes in, it's going to be up to each institution, and you can have those conversations, but those conversations aren't now just with the student athlete like they were back in the day when you called in an athlete to have a team meeting. Now you may have parents and agents, and there's more involved. It's not just a simple coach student athlete conversation. And financially, that impacts everything as well. I mean, the transfer portal is a crazy thing, and as we are looking at our recruiting budget, I think that completely changes your recruiting budget, because you're finding out, 2 days after you finish season, there's possibly somebody's leaving your team. There's people in the portal you need to look at, and you're trying to get a ticket that within 24 hours to get them on campus. That's not really cost effective. And so, and it's changing, we bring people in, and also now with this revenue share, I think there's a greater interest from the foreign players now, because they can receive payment, because NIL they couldn't, but with your revenue share you can. So I think that's going to change recruiting. So that's going to change my position financially and trying to budget, because it's not, there's just not, money doesn't just grow on trees and we can just continue to increase the budget. You have to find ways to make it balance out.
How did you guys, keep that the issue of money from being a problem in the locker room? Because you got young people who, in some cases, are making more money at a young age than any of their peers, but it's different amounts of money, and they don't really have professional experience of being in an office where that is a reality. What steps did you all take to make sure that the money stuff stayed out of the locker room?
Well, I think the biggest thing we did, we relied on our leadership. We had the team come up with, hey, what's acceptable? What are we going to allow in here? And it was kind of like, what, our locker room is a sacred place. This is a place that a lot of people came before you, created this culture and put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and the time when there was no money on the table, and they were happy just to get their own locker room or get a charter flight once a year. Not every flight is a charter flight. So reminding them of where this program came from and keeping that sacred and special within the locker room space. So yeah, we know it's going to be outside the locker room, but when you come in, it was all about volleyball. There was you weren't talking deals. You weren't doing videos that had to do with it. That was our sacred space that stayed true to our culture and what our program is about. And then if issues arise and, the captains had concerns, then maybe the conversation moved up the chain where coaches got involved. But I feel like, we've been fortunate. We have a very mature team, and they came to Nebraska for the reason to win, be at a high level, hopefully go on and have a professional career, national team career. Like, their focus and goals are much bigger than what the NIL table or the revenue share shows for the year. That wasn't the thought coming in. It was bigger than that. And as long as we can keep that at the forefront, I think that helps keep those distractions out, and they understand, like, you're here to play volleyball. Like, you have to perform on the court. And if you let that get in the way, your performance is decline, then you aren't going to even have to worry about that, because it's not going to be an option. Like, your performance gets you that. And that the people surrounding you and the people here working with you are trying to make you the best version of yourself and best student athlete for our program. So them buying into that. And then, if that other stuff comes, great, that's reward. And it's also a testament to our team and program, because it wasn't just self-induced or, you had to rely on others to get to that point.
Yeah. You mentioned kind of in your job description that you help a lot with logistics and travel and things like that. But Nebraska's playing in the last year and this year, they were playing in the first serve from AVCA. And this year you're going to Nashville for the Broadway block party. When do you kind of come in? Are you part of the contract negotiations, or is that just things are signed and then they handle all of the logistics around that? I imagine this year the first serve's in Lincoln, so it's a little bit different. Mm-hmm. How much extra work goes into that, or is it closer to the NCAA tournament where a lot of things are taken care of by other groups?
I mean, there are conversations early on. I'm part of those conversations, discussing contract negotiations, what it would look like, what to get a team to come, like these are tournaments, like last year was first time they ever had it. We're playing in the middle of the week. What's that look like with when we start practice, waivers that need to be filed to see if we can start earlier. So the ball gets rolling well in advance to that. And then, so I'm in those conversations. Last year I was in them with Coach Cook, and having those to try to figure out what would be best for our team, planning on looking at our non-conference schedule, what we'd already had scheduled and contracted there. So yeah, that process I start with, and then once you get through the contract and some of the initial planning phases, they take over, and because it's not a Nebraska event, they take over more of the logistics and then present, but we're host, kind of a host, so we can help in those areas as far as ideas of things that would, might make it a better event, or how to get fans more involved, or whatever it may be. So that process is something that will take place probably till first couple of weeks before it happens, like even just putting the scheduling together, because we're going to have to this year work on, practice times in PBA versus getting teams into Devaney, because there's a lot of teams that are going to need to practice, and the availability around match times, and trying to just get all those puzzle pieces together. And that's, I think, very similar to what the NCAA looks like, because the NCAA is a pretty rushed process. I mean, you make it, and then you have that first week, but then after that, you have a championship within like 10 days, so you're trying, you make the final four, and you immediately after regionals are on the phone trying to plan the whole next week in a time of like 12 hours, because there's a chance you're on a plane in 24 hours. I mean, it's a lot. And so I think having that experience helps and makes this first serve thing so easy, because you're planning it for a year and you have those talks. But, a big piece of that was just John and his vision for trying to make volleyball bigger, and what are ways we can do it. And really Jamie Gordon and his staff at the AVC have been amazing with how they can continue to raise the bar for volleyball and what we can do to make this really a big event. And, year one was great. And it looks like all signs are pointing to a great year two with the teams and the excitement. I mean, it's like a mini NCAA tournament to start the year out, because when are you going to have all this talent in the same building? So it's exciting. And I think it just shows, the growth of sport. That wasn't something we were talking about 20 years ago when I started it. We were just, your main little tournaments you had at home, and there wasn't even the thought of doing that and trying to put a national broadcast together.
You have any idea what they're looking at for year 3 of the AVCA First Serve?
I don't know that. I just know you can only be in it for 2 years. So most likely we won't be a part of that. But I'm sure from what they learned from this year in Louisville to how they're applying it to Lincoln. And I think they're just trying to learn as they go, and they get ideas as they see it. So this will be a big year, though. I mean, the fact that they're doing it over the weekend, not during the week, and then they're carrying it over into Sioux Falls with more matches. It's really a great concept. And I could see them following that type of concept and just keeping it in areas where volleyball really means something. I mean, that's where you're going to have the most success.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Lincoln. We're with Lindsay Peterson, Nebraska's Director of Volleyball Operations. You talked a minute ago about sort of the logistical challenges of quickly putting together plans to go and play in the NCAA tournament. You have a little bit more time when you're setting up these spring matches, and the program's created this really nice tradition of going on the road to different places within the state to play spring exhibitions. What's that process like? How long does it take to sort of start scouting locations? Is your phone ringing off the hook of people calling and say, hey, come here, come play at our school? What was that like?
Yeah, I joke that I could have paid for my son's college education probably if I was taking money under the table to solidify a spot, because there's a lot of places in Nebraska that want it. And I think that's really awesome. And what makes this so special, we get calls a year in advance. Like I already have a list for next year. People, hey, consider us next year. When do I have to call to check out? And we don't really think about that till our season's over as far as deciding a location, because it's going to be based off of, other teams' spring schedules. And once we decide the location, we have rule within the NCAA of how far teams can travel. So then we start looking at teams around and if their spring schedule matches up with ours. So that whole process doesn't take place till January, but I definitely already have a list of places that are interested. And so once we kind of solidify a date, then I start reaching out to those places to see, hey, is it prom? Are you holding prom? Is it falling on graduation? Is it, are you able, what can we do to try to make it work with your venue? And that sometimes eliminates some places in itself. We try to move around a little bit, so we're not always, in Northeast Nebraska or just Central Nebraska. And it's just, this is really special for our program. I think it's great for our players to see the love of the team throughout the state. I mean, a lot of them don't get outside of Lincoln or Omaha, and for them to see, these small communities and what these communities are about and how much they support our team and the impact they can make in that 24-hour trip on so many people. It really is a great way to end our season and kind of create that extra buzz to get us going through the summer to get to fall. And people look forward to it. I mean, it's the talk of where's the next spring game going to be? I mean, it's become that big of an event. And so the planning is definitely not as rushed, and having done it so many times, it varies based on the venue. If it's at a high school versus, maybe a big event center, in like a Kearney or Grand Island, something like that, how ticket sales go, some of the NCAA rules that apply based on using a high school versus a different venue. But I have a pretty solid template that we follow, and we just, move on to the next school or location and make adjustments as we need be. We always do a site visit a couple, in advance before ticket sales even go, so we can make sure we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed before sales happen, because it is a great event, but we also, everyone's excited. We also want to make it a great event, and we don't want it to be an issue or trouble for the place we're going. We want them to want us to come back. So if it's a huge headache for them, that's not going to help them out. So we try to make it as easy as possible to get it laid out. And the planning is, January to about March, and then ticket sales happen. And then that last week before we go, it's kind of just all the finalizing of everything to make sure once we get there, we're ready to roll. Because it is a really busy schedule once we get there. I mean, it's not a lot of downtime, and we do all we can to be available to the community and let our players get out and about while we're there, so we can make the biggest impact that we can.
I mean, how you talk about everything that's going on around this. I mean, how much other stuff are you in charge? I mean, like, are you getting a Terraflex court up there too? Are you arranging for events? Like, I know that there's been receptions or clinics the night before too. Are you arranging that, or how much of that kind of falls on you versus the host group or institution?
Yeah, no, that falls on us. So basically, I will help. The last few years, the clinic has been part of Sir Concordia has done it. And so the clinic has been through them, and we have just done a practice, I guess, to say afterwards that they're able to watch. And then the other part of it is we take the Terraflex floor because we want to play on a Nebraska court. Mm-hmm. So we have to get go out there, get measurements, figure out, the net system will work with their court, getting the court laid out, how we can get courtside seating set up. That's why our site visit is so important, is we work on all that. And then setting up hotels. I mean, some of these small towns don't have a lot of hotels available. So that's another big challenge. And we want to make it, we want to be there and have a reception. So if people are going above and beyond to help make this, we want to give them an extra time with the team. So that's where the receptions come in, and we plan that and organize, meals through that. So it's like a away match that I'm still setting up from here, but we're not hosting it. We're basically renting their facility to hold our event, but all the planning comes from us and then working with them to make it work in their venue.
Yeah, and you got to find a place long enough where you can have a autograph line of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So
having an auxiliary gym is definitely helpful in that to handle that process. And that's the other cool thing is, besides our fan day, this is the only other time where we can we sign. And we make it a point that we sign till the last person in line gets an autograph. And so that's, I think, another really valuable part of this is it allows this community to see us, but gives them the opportunity to interact. And the fan day in August then some area of the state has already had their fan day with our team.
So on May 2nd, Nebraska is going to go out to Ord and play South Dakota State. How did you guys decide that Ord was the landing spot for the 2025 spring game?
Well, John had a little bit of play in that because everyone knows that he has a new hobby with horses and being a cowboy, and his kind of passion or growth in roping started out in that area. The Pitzer Ranch isn't too far from there, and that's where he has really developed a good relationship with them, and then some cowboys in the area, Mark Ray. And so he's when he had gone out there to rope or, try to get lessons in roping, he would stay in Ord at the Cobblestone Hotel. And so we had just started talking at the end of the year when we were starting to talk about spring match and before he retired. We had said, where could we go? We had thought maybe heading more north central. We were in Kearney, maybe not heading so much west. We'd look at northeast Nebraska. So reaching out to South Dakota State was an option to try to get them to come. And so we just made a couple. Ord had not reached out to us, but we contacted them and said, hey, would this be a possibility? And they absolutely welcomed us with open arms and were willing to do whatever it took. And we started to get the ball rolling. And I think it makes it kind of cool because, as John's kind of riding out of his coaching career, and in that part of the state, he is not just Coach Cook. He's, they see him as, John the cowboy, but they also he sees the love for volleyball out there, and it's really connected that part of the state with our program. And so to go out there and do that kind of as his last final, he's helped set that up. I think is really cool. And it's a smaller venue, but an intimate, but that's small town Nebraska. I mean, that's a lot of Nebraska. That's the heart of Nebraska, the small communities. And so I think that's really important for our players to see.
Does that mean more for you? I mean, you're a small town Nebraska yourself too. I mean, do you connect that, especially does this kind of event, even though it takes a lot of extra work and a lot of planning and logistics, does it resonate with you?
Absolutely. I mean, when I go on my site visit, it's like, all the memories come flooding back. You see the gym, and then you see the small locker room and the small training room, not these big lavish things that you see at, the bigger schools or even in college. And the small town community, I mean, you ask him like, oh, what about parking? Oh, parking won't be a problem. We'll park at the fairgrounds, and we'll get our, people will load up, hay racks and trucks and, shuttle people over if have to. I mean, it's just that community, small town community feel where everybody does stuff to make it work, and you can feel the excitement, and it's important, and just, it really brings them together. And that brings back lots of memories from my days.
For sure. We're talking with Lindsay Peterson, Director of Volleyball Operations, Nebraska. You mentioned it kind of a little bit, how this is John's last ride off into the sunset too. I mean, I imagine, I don't know if that week was kind of, that January was a lot of extra work. I mean, start off, like, how did John let you know that he was leaving, and what was your kind of reaction? Or did you have time for reaction? Or did you go into, we got to get stuff done?
Well, we'd been in conversation leading up to that point. So I had a good idea it was coming. Didn't know actually the exact timing of it, and but was aware of the process and knowing that when it did happen, kind of what would need to take place. And I remember the morning he told me, I actually had a meeting already scheduled to go over and meet with our administration. I do that as part of, by a monthly meeting, just to keep us all on the same page. And I already had that on my calendar, and he had been gone the day before speaking. And so I just had talked to him on the phone that night, and he said we were going to meet that day. And I walked in his office, said, hey, I'm taking off to go over to my meeting. And he handed me an envelope and said, hey, I need you to take this. And that I was like, oh, didn't think anything of it. And then he had said, well, do you know what I just gave you? And then it just hit. And I was like, I have a great idea of what you just gave me. And it was, at the time, it was so bittersweet and mixed emotions. I was emotional because even though you prepare for that, I don't think you're actually ready when it does, it becomes a reality. And so it was such mixed emotions because we had such a long career together, and I knew how much he meant to this program and state, but I also was so excited for him for this next transition and what, to be with his family, and how he was looking forward to what he was going to be able to do in retirement. So I just had a little bit of time to gather myself and then go over to meet. And obviously they were aware of administration. And so the meeting that was going to take place of just small talk turned into immediately planning and getting the wheels turning of how to get everything in place in the next several days to make this all happen and try to get it as smooth as possible. So that's really where the focus turned. And then after his press conference, it was almost like, then it hit again because it was all over. I mean, you kind of put your game face on and just do what you're supposed to do and get through it. And then after that, it was a little more emotional for me, just understanding that it had come to an end. And like I said, John had become like family. It was like a family member moving on. But the process was a whirlwind. Let me tell you, that was a crazy 48 hours. And I said that I would never be a very good private investigator or anybody that has to keep a secret around, because it was killing me to, try to come up with stories and without flat out saying anything, and people would ask questions and I'd have to play it off. And I'm not good at that. I don't have a very good game face. Poker face, I would fail that. I would not be good in that area.
Well, did you ever have this conversation with him in recent years, even before this year, or was this the first year where you got a sense that it was more than theoretical, it was actually going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about it, and just kind of every year, like, what do you think? Is it the year? What's it look like? How do you feel? Like, just talking through his mindset and emotions and what he really wanted and felt like would be the perfect time for it to happen. So I would say this year, obviously, though, the conversations were much more frequent and seemed to be more real. And we were like getting closer to that point instead of just the conversation of what will it look like and how am I going to know and when will I know to retire and what's the best time, and more just, brains pop, just asking questions to get ideas out there. I felt like that was the conversation in prior years, but this year it was definitely a different track.
Was any part of those conversations include talk about who the successor would be? Because it sounded like he had, quite a bit of influence over what that was going to look like. But did he talk with you about that at all?
Yeah, he would talk to me about it. And he obviously, and his part of his whole plan was who did he think would be best fit and making sure the timing was right. But he always said it would have to be up to the AD. Like, this is what I think, but it's not my decision. And so he was accepting of that and knew that. But I think with any coach that has the longevity and legacy that they have at a program, their AD is probably going to take a little stock in what they have to say. And so John understood that and knew that. And he'd done a lot of also looking at some of the other, looking at Mike Krzyzewski from Duke and seeing how that took place. John doesn't do anything just by chance. He's always very well educated and prepared and has done his due diligence to see how to make the best. And he wanted to make sure that that was the case with this transition and how much he cared. Let's be honest. I think John would be in a volleyball gym till he physically couldn't coach anymore. That's how much he loves coaching and loves the being in the gym with the team and developing players. That's always been one of his greatest joys of being a coach. So that was, if you strictly looked at, well, when are you tired of coaching? That was never going to happen. So he had to look at all the other areas and then put the program and the team at the forefront. And that's what he did. And I think he's learned that also by looking at the other great programs in college athletics and how they did something, because it's never easy to fill someone's shoes that has left a big legacy. And he wanted to try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. John's been head coach for 25 years and just had a lot of institutional knowledge. Now, you're kind of in that role too. You're the most tenured person over at the volleyball program. Is there And Nebraska is also a very tradition-laden program. I mean, is there pressure or there's expectations that come with having that institutional knowledge and being, I don't know if you consider yourself the torchbearer for that history and legacy, is there expectations or pressure that comes with that?
I don't really feel the expectations or pressure. I think that's just being in this program. Like, you expect to continue the tradition. You expect to continue the legacy of, the people that come before and what Nebraska volleyball is about. And having been a player, it means a lot to me. Like, I can see, maybe not having ever worn that jersey, your perspective might have been different, but having worn Nebraska across my chest, it has a great impact. And no matter who's the head coach or running the program, I feel like my commitment and loyalty is to the Nebraska volleyball program, and I want to do whatever possible to help get it to achieve the goals and that it's set out to be and continue to be one of the best out there. So it's just it is different. I just look at it like, will more my role change or what I bring to the program change? And it will in some manner, but I also feel like I just do what I've known for so many years, and I have such my understanding of where this program, where we've been and how we've come to where we are now, I think is something that will help me continue helping whoever, Dani now on this trajectory to continue to raise the bar. And it takes a special person to be able to fill John's shoes and to do that and have that mindset. And so if I can assist and support, and I'll do whatever I can to support Dani to help that, then that's what I feel is maybe the torch, where the torch lies for me, is just to provide that support.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Dani also, wore Nebraska across her chest as a player, and this is what the third different role she's going to have had within the program. You got to be around her when she was an assistant coach before she left to go to Louisville after the 2016 season. What are the biggest ways that you have seen her change just over in those 8 or 9 years since she was here as an assistant?
Yeah, I mean, Dani's always been a great relator and relationships, and so I saw that very much as an assistant and her role in our recruiting and how she really took that over and when she was here as an assistant. And I still see that as, her strength, and one of her greatest characteristics here is just right away how she's already related to everybody, how she's very transparent. She's always been transparent and open. There's not you don't have to wonder what she's thinking or anything. And I think that honesty is what helps her have such great relationships with people. I've seen her just change more in the fact of she might be a little more worried and into the details, but as a head coach, you have to be. Like I said, there's so many other things besides coaching that you have to consider now. And but she really handles things with a grain of salt as they come, and doesn't allow to worry and stress, and kind of accept things and is very matter of fact about them. And I think that allows her to be successful, and has allowed her to be successful, especially in these changing times in college athletics, that she doesn't get too worked up. She handles change well. She's up for any challenge, and it doesn't disrupt her focus or her, thoughts of where this program going to go when something changes in the NCAA, or, we lose a recruit or a player. She just handles it very controlled and moves on to the next. And so, yeah, I've seen growth in that area with her as well. But that's, like I said, some of the stuff is why she's been such a good head coach, as I saw as an assistant. I mean, she related to people well, and she connected and made them feel a part really early on, and got them to trust her because she has that way about her. Like, she's honest and open. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what especially when there's so much on the line, I think that's what athletes want these days. They have to know where they stand and what it's going to look like. And if it's not what they like, then so be it.
We're wrapping up with Lindsay Peterson, Nebraska's director of volleyball operations. And Lindsay, I remember when you were you were in round one as a broadcaster when you were doing color for the road matches on the radio with John Baylor, and now you've gotten back into it with doing some Supernovas matches on Nebraska Public Media. Have you enjoyed getting back behind the microphone and kind of trying to diagnose the game to an audience?
Yeah, it is. It's a different side, and it's fun to kind of sit back and not feel tight or stressed and sitting on the edge of my seat for each play with that. But it's fun to see, just like I said, having professional volleyball in the United States now, and to see some athletes that have come through Nebraska and get to see them continue on, with their career professionally here, and to call a game it's a little extra icing on the cake. I mean, I feel like it lets me talk volleyball and try to put on my coach's hat again from way back in the day that I don't wear a lot as a director of operations. And so I've enjoyed it, and hopefully it's something that I can continue doing in the future here and there, and just keep that tie going.
You've mentioned a lot of the work that's gone on the last few months with the transition, setting up the spring match, getting ready for the fall season. I mean, when you go to Hawaii with the team, do you get to relax much at all? Enjoy yourself and like take off your Dovo hat and say, all right, I'm in Hawaii, let's have some fun?
Yeah, I feel like when I go to Hawaii, I have to put on my mom hat, because it's like we're on spring break and there's all, the players and free time and getting in the ocean with the big waves and whatever. But yeah, that's an absolute bonus and perk to the job, is to have those trips. And Hawaii just makes you relax. I mean, it's the surroundings that you have there, and it's always fun to go back with Jalen's connection to Hawaii. I kind of tell Jalen, I'm like, you're the one in charge. You're running the ship here. You're driving the car, not me. You tell me where to go. You make the plans because you know it. So I do get to take it off a little bit and get in the back seat and enjoy that. But yeah, it's a great perk, and it's always a trip that, especially this year, carried a lot of meeting as we're trying to develop our team and staff and get unified. But it's always a trip that we walk away from and feel like we accomplished so much, not just with volleyball, but just as our team dynamics. So it was a great vacation. I did relax a little bit. My family was jealous. Like, well, you got a trip to Hawaii. And said, well, I did work some. Like, it wasn't just a free week in Hawaii.
Working trip.
Yeah. All right. Director of Volleyball Operations for Nebraska, Lindsay Peterson, joining us on Volleyball State. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time today. We probably took a little bit more of it than you had planned, but we're really grateful for it. And good luck over the next couple of weeks as things start to move and you get more into playing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate all you guys do to help support our program and grow the sport.
Thanks so much again to Lindsay Peterson. Let's move into rotation 2. Lincoln, we are now officially into the month of April, which means Nebraska's indoor spring season has started, even though we're not going to see the Huskers on the court till the end of the month. Nebraska, for the first time in 10 years, is going to play 2 spring exhibition matches. It starts April 26th against Kansas at the Devaney Center as part of Nebraska's Husker games. That's sort of replacing the spring football weekend. That's April 26th. And then the next Saturday, May 3rd, I think I said May 2nd earlier when we were talking to Lindsay, but May 3rd, they're going to be playing South Dakota State out in Ord, Nebraska, home of the Chanticleers. And that sounds like it was set up when John, through John Cook's Cowboy connections, maybe.
Oh yeah, it's right near,
way to put it.
Right near Burwell, right near the big ranch. It'll be a cowboy. We'll have to count the number of cowboy hats in the crowd or Wrangler jeans. So and this is that, like you said, the first time they've never done this in the Devaney Center eras, and they moved there in 2013, correct?
I think so.
Yeah,
13 or 14.
The last year they played spring matches, might have been earlier that year actually, because they lost to Creighton in the last ever volleyball match. It was an exhibition, ever volleyball match in the Coliseum. So for the first time, they're playing 2 spring matches. But I think for this team, it's good to play 2. One, because Dani Busboom Kelly gets to make her debut in Devaney in front of a little bit bigger audience. And like you said, I think to me, everything going on that weekend with the Husker games, there's no Husker football game. This to me is the crown jewel. I think there's a spring soccer exhibition game.
And there might be a baseball or softball playing that weekend too.
Yeah, some tours of the fancy new football facility. But to me,
if you have $50 to pay for that tour.
this to me is the highlight of the weekend as well too. And like you said, yeah, then Ord is the continuing of the Nebraska volleyball tour. So there's a lot going on. We haven't had any media availability yet with the volleyball team. They started indoor practices last week. So we haven't had a chance to talk to them, see what's going on, but there's a lot of intrigue going on because it is a very transitional team. Lose a lot of the senior class that was the cornerstone of them. And you're also changing a head coach as well too. So we can talk about the biggest things we're interested in seeing and kind of the plot lines to watch. Hopefully we get some media availability. Shout out to Nate Poland, who just had another tryout. So hopefully he gets back.
I was going to text Nate and see how that was going. Congratulations to Nate and his wife. That's Nebraska media relations contact, Nate Poland, who I believe this is child number 5 for them. Congratulations.
Yeah, so, hopefully he'll get back on the job soon and we'll get a media session.
Hey man, don't rush him. Having a kid's hard.
Eventually,
you gotta be around for a little bit.
He didn't have a kid, but
his family had a kid.
Yeah. It is tough. Sorry. But so hopefully we'll get there eventually. But there's some things that we're kind of looking to see in both those matches and also just kind of through practices as well too. So I guess the biggest question I have for the spring is who's going to play opposite in those 2 matches too, because it's not like, they can just do a trial run for the spring because there's 2 factors that weigh into this. One, Ryan Hunter coming off of a knee surgery. She tore some ligaments in her knee almost a year ago now. She did not play beach season. So they're still kind of taking the precautious approach to that to make sure that she's back at full health too. And I think the other factor with that too is Ali Czech, who is a graduate transfer from Baylor, who plays opposite. She's an all Big 12 level performer, but she's finishing her undergraduate degree at Baylor and won't join Nebraska till the spring. So those are the 2 people who I think are the most obvious candidates to start this fall. But one's not here. One, I don't know what her health is, where she is. She was cleared in December. Ryan Hunter was cleared in December to start volleyball activity. So I don't know but you have to play an opposite. So I don't know if she's going to be ready to play by the end of the month or if they're going to move one of their other left ends there, whether it be Skylar Pierce or someone else.
Yeah, I could see them moving Skylar Pierce, the redshirt freshman, over there and giving her maybe an extended tryout in the spring. I think you probably will see Ryan Hunter, maybe not for more than 2 sets if they want to still kind of limit her jumps. You could also put Taylor Landfair over there and give her a little bit more of an extended tryout on the right. This is a nice situation if you want to look for a silver lining in this, and in Czech not being here until the summer is it gives Dani Busboom Kelly audition periods that she could check out who might also be effective over there on the right. One of the other things I'm interested in seeing is Nebraska's outside hitters. I think we have a known quantity with Harper Murray, obviously, but outside of that, who's Nebraska's going to be go-to performer. Like I was talking with someone who follows the program pretty close a couple of weeks ago, and they said, Nebraska is going to come into the season with 2 great players, Harper Murray and Andy Jackson, 2 proven great players. Who's going to be the 3rd or the 4th that steps up? And so that kind of starts now in front of a fresh set of eyes with Dani Busboom Kelly. Skylar Pierce is going to have her say over there on the left. So will the true freshman Tariah Sigler, who arrived early in the spring, the number 1 recruit by a couple of services. So Nebraska's definitely got some potential over there on the left side. It's going to be really interesting to see who fights it out over the spring and the summer and who starts the AVCA showcase, because I think Harper Murray is definitely kind of penciled in at one spot, but then a couple other spots are up for grabs.
Yeah. I think that a lot of, not calling 2-time Big Ten Conference Setter of the Year Bergen Riley not a great. I think she'll have something to say, but I think that goes into my next topic too. I think what I'm most interested in, and you heard Lindsay talk about this a little bit, of the leadership of the team too. Who's going to step up and fill that void? Merritt Beeson, Lexi Rodriguez are gone. They both served as captains for the last 2 years. Who's going to step up into that role too? I think I have my kind of predictions too. I think just from voices you've heard within the program, strong personalities, and also the roles they play on the team too. I think Bergen Riley will be an important person to step up into that. And you may see other people like Rebecca Alec. I think I remember talking with her when she was a freshman, how being a captain at Nebraska was something she was really passionate about and was striving to do. Harper Murray, I think, has played a very important role over the past year, just kind of her personal growth, and also set an example for the younger people on her team, and just kind of what she's been able to do as far as finding her voice over the last few months. So I think you could see a couple options there, but I think those to me are the most obvious ones to me.
And I imagine you're not going to know who the captains are until the early fall, maybe once we're into fall practice just a bit. Although I've been wrong about this before. I do love the idea of when your setter is a captain. I think the person who handles the ball the most should be in a leadership position if it's kind of within their personality. So I would love to see if Bergen Riley added being a team captain to kind of the responsibilities that she already has on the team.
Yeah, and also she's on the court all 6 rotations too. If someone like your middle blocker, or last year you saw Merritt Beeson was only playing front row, there's times when you don't have any captains on the court too, and you get into a rut in the wrong rotation, you need one of those strong voices. But there's a lot of strong voices on the program too. So, and I remember that was when Merritt Beeson first showed up 2 years ago. There was no official captain, but she was the one who was addressing the crowd in Central City that year, and took the mic. That the team chose her to speak for them, and that was kind of a preview of the leadership skills. And she had only been with the team for a couple months at that point after transferring from Florida. So you may not be in an official capacity, but I bet you're already behind the scenes. Somebody will be stepping up in kind of a natural progression to that captain role.
The other thing that I'm really looking forward to seeing, in, just like when you have a coaching change in the football team and you're like, oh man, what's the new offense going to look like? What's the new defense going to look like? I want to see sort of structurally on the court how Nebraska is going to look and how they may look different under Dani Busboom Kelly than under John Cook. I mean, I think it's important to point out that Nebraska's assistant coaching staff is all the same as it was under Cook, with both Kelly Hunter and Jalen Reyes still on the staff. But what is the offense going to look a little different? I don't know that Nebraska is going to run a 6-2 this year, but Louisville's last couple teams with Dani Busboom Kelly ran a 6-2. Is the tempo going to be a little bit quicker, which I think could benefit Bergen Riley a little bit? Or how structured versus free flowing is this attack going to look like? Nebraska was really, their identity under John Cook became tough blocking, great floor defense, tough serving. Is it still going to look like that, or is it going to be to look like something else and different things being prioritized? So I'm really interested in seeing like what the Huskers actually look like on the court, maybe especially on the offensive attack side.
Yeah, and that kind of transition. My final one that I have. You mentioned the assistant coaches. Yes, we have Jalen Reyes and Kelly Hunter Natter, who got married also in the offseason.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, those are back. So I think those are. But the third one we don't know. Jordan Larson stepped away from coaching, so we have her open spot to fill. We don't know the answer to that one. Brandon Hager, who served as a GA for the last couple of years, who was an outside hitter, played men's college volleyball at Ottawa. He's kind of been filling in that role. He's helped out with Beach. He's gone on the road recruiting, but there's been no announcement from the team. He's not listed on the official roster yet. And when Dani was hired, I think she was very clear that she was going to take her time with this role too. But you think that she'd have someone hired probably by the time before she goes on maternity leave? I mean, she's due in mid to late May. So you wonder when, I don't know how long they're going to stretch that out, if they're going to keep him in that role and make that official. So hopefully we get an answer to that over the next month or two.
I wouldn't be surprised, Lincoln, if they waited on a decision for that, or at least an announcement, until after the spring matches were done. And
Yeah.
I don't have any inside knowledge on that. That's just a feeling I have, is sort of the next big transitional point in the college volleyball season. It comes in May. Like once the semester is done at most universities, that's when the transfer portal is going to open again. And so I could see some assistant coaching moves happening at that point. I'm not saying that, anyone from Nebraska is going to leave, but if you have that open spot, I could see May being the time that gets handled.
Great. Well, that's all. That's kind of some things we're looking forward to this spring. So, like we said, we'll get some, hopefully get a chance to talk to the players here shortly, or we'll get to see them. I imagine we'll see them at the big Husker games at the end of the month. So, all right, well, let's move on to rotation 3. We're going to start some professional volleyball rotations. First, we'll start off with League One, Love Volleyball. Big news for Love Omaha. They finally snapped their losing streak. They had gone almost 2 months, not quite a month and a half before between wins. They had they won on February 8th. It was our last win. Before last weekend, they finally got a win as a 3-2 victory over Austin. It was very short-lived because, again, the next night they lost to Salt Lake in 5 sets. You could tell they were playing back-to-back matches. It looked like they ran out of gas a little bit too, and they got reverse swept. But we'll focus on the positive too. Omaha finally got a win. And just, I think the team really needed that. It was very cathartic for them. That way they don't have to keep answering, "Hey, you're so close. Why aren't you winning?"
Yeah, they had, after losing the next night to Salt Lake, I think they've lost 9 of 10 across all competitions. And yeah, you could tell that Saturday match, even the first 2 sets they won against Salt Lake went extra points. I think the second set went 33-31. So Omaha was playing a lot of volleyball over the span of 48 hours. If you're looking for some silver linings for Love Omaha, I think Maddie Kubik Banks has really gotten an opportunity to show what she can do. She's been Omaha's best attacker over the last couple of weeks. Former Creighton star Jaylee Winters also had a big match over the weekend as well. Omaha's, still, I think, struggling a little bit on getting an attack out of the right side. Susie Fritz keeps moving some folks around. Nicole Drenyak will look good in stretches and then struggle in stretches. Omaha's just not the most efficient offense, and I don't think they have kind of a go-to dominant offensive player right now. And then Lincoln, as you noted, they've had real problems keeping middle blockers healthy.
Yeah. They we finally got official word a couple of weeks ago. They had their home matches at the UNO Baxter Arena. They kind of officially, Susie Fritz said that Candelaria Herrera is officially done. She had a knee injury. She hadn't played since, I think, early March. So not anything huge surprise, but officially declared her done. Also, Lauren Stivrance has been out of action. Her injury is more week to week. They didn't say that she's out for the rest of the season, but the end of the season is coming quickly. We haven't seen her, but she's dealing with some just health issues that require rest and recovery, so it's hard to do that. But one of the other bright spots too is they've signed Sammy Francis, who was a All-American middle blocker from Stanford, who had just been sitting around for 3 months. She's finishing her degree from Stanford. It's not like she's not doing nothing, but she hadn't been playing volleyball. I hadn't really touched a volleyball, and then came in the first night that she signed with the team on Tuesday, went through practice on Wednesday and Thursday, and then was starting on Friday night and led or tied for the team high in points that night. And I thought I was at that match, and she looked very good. She looked rusty in the fact that she hadn't worked with her setter or worked in an offensive system that much. But I thought, as far as she was blocking, and when they would get the ball to her in good position, she would put the ball away too. So that was really great to see too. And I think, but speaking of course, crummy health, against that 5-set loss to Salt Lake, it was tied 8-8 in the 5th set, and she goes down and she lands on a teammate's foot, so sprained her ankle, and then Salt Lake goes on a 5-0 run to effectively end the match too. So can't catch a break with health for the middle blockers. We'll see. Hopefully she's back. Omaha has a home match on Thursday night this week, so hopefully she's back and being able to play, because they're running out of healthy bodies over there.
Right now, what, Emily Thader would be the only healthy middle
and Pittsburgh's Nawalka. The old Pittsburgh middle blocker too. I mispronounced her name too, but she was also a mid-year signing for the team as well too. But she's been with them for just over a month now.
Okay. Well, yeah, like you mentioned, Lincoln, Omaha hosts Atlanta on Thursday night. That's going to be at Liberty First Credit Union Arena. It's still Ralston Arena to me, darn it. But Atlanta is 12-3 and
Yeah.
leads the PVF.
Nope.
Was
I leave love.
or excuse me, leads love. Apologies to everyone in both those leagues for screwing that up. But Atlanta really stands out to me because they're the most efficient offense in League One, but they're the best passing team, which has a lot to do with that. Kelsey Robinson Cook, former Nebraska great, and Team USA outside. No surprise here if you followed Kelsey's career. She's always been a really strong passing outside. Statistically, she is the best passer in League One of any player, not just outside hitters, but she has the highest passing number of any libero, any outside hitter in League One. And when Atlanta's in system, they're able to put balls away as good as anyone. So this is going to be a tough match for Omaha on Thursday night at Liberty First Credit Union Arena. The good news for Omaha, although this is maybe one of my criticisms of Love, is everyone makes the playoffs, I think, and that's going to be that in Louisville where the playoffs and the finals are going to be. So if Omaha ends up remaining in last place in the league going into the playoffs, they could probably find themselves matched up against a team like Atlanta again. I forget exactly how the playoff format is, but my biggest criticism of Love this year has been everything kind of feels like intramurals on steroids, and when all the teams make the playoffs like this, it sort of reinforces that feeling to me. But you've still got great players, and I'd encourage you to go watch them. But yeah, it doesn't feel like anyone's getting all broken up about a losing streak or something like that in the first year of the league.
Yeah. So how the playoffs are set up are very similar to the League One Cup that they had in February in Kansas City. All 6 teams will make it. The top 2 will get byes, which right now Atlanta's be the number 1 seed. Houston, they have a 2.5 game or 1.5 game lead over Madison. Houston more than likely will be the number 2 seed. So those teams will get byes. And then Madison, Salt Lake, Austin and Omaha are tied for 5th place, I guess you could say. So we'll see how things go this weekend as well too. But every team will make it. It would be 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. Then the winners advance. So everyone makes it. They'll be playing in the Yum Center in Louisville, which there's another huge club tournament that's going on in that city. So hopefully they get people to turn out for that tournament as well too. But yeah, it's like you said, the stakes are very low, but they're playing. But you saw, I think, was it Houston that Houston played in didn't get a bye. Omaha, remember Omaha got a bye in the League One Cup.
Yeah, and went 0-2,
and they're going to be in possibly 5th or 6th place. They will be in 5th or 6th place. So yeah, they'll get that bye, but yeah. So we'll see whether. But yeah, they're playing for seeding at this point, and we'll see. This is Atlanta's tournament to lose unless someone like Jordan Thompson on the Houston team goes off, or Matt who gets hot this time of the year. That's the thing. If everyone makes the playoffs, who's going to get hot and make that run?
Well, hey, let's move into rotation 4 and talk about a team that is red hot in the Pro Volleyball Federation. That's the Omaha Supernovas. Omaha has now won 6 out of their last 7 matches after they beat Vegas and Grand Rapids last weekend. Lincoln, you were up at both of those matches. What's the secret behind Omaha's hot streak?
Omaha has a couple players who are some of the best. I mean, to me, Brooke Nuneviller has been. I mean, she doesn't have some of the flashy numbers as a couple of other people like a Brittany Abercrombie or a Azani Teeler, but throughout the whole season, I think she's been one of the most steady performers at that high level as well too. So I think Brooke Nuneviller is the one who drives it, and then behind her, I think Laura Bird-Coon, the coach, has been a great job of riding the hot hand, picking players to go in, making lineup changes, and really kind of pulling the cords right where Omaha needs it to find the right recipe for victories too. So I mean, we have the question. I mean, Kelsey Payne was one of the stars of this last week, and her counterpart at opposite was named PVF Player of the Week, Emily Londa,
Yeah.
future volleyball or former volleyball state guest. She was the Player of the Week a couple weeks ago too. So she goes from Player of the Week to now playing second string behind Kelsey Payne, who's been one of the best players on the team.
Yeah, that's a question I would have, and I don't know if you know more about that, but Payne started the year as the Supernovas starting opposite, and then when they signed Londot took over for like 3 straight weeks or maybe even longer, but she had a long run of being in the starting lineup, and then over the last couple weeks, I think after a match where she had a lot of swings and didn't have a really efficient night, Kelsey Payne, the former Kansas Jayhawk, goes back into the lineup and played really well last weekend. So like Omaha looks like they have a number of options, and Laura Kuhn is letting kind of the hot hand ride.
Yeah, because you saw Emily Londot got that when they beat Indy. They beat Orlando, two of the other top 4 teams in the league too. But they come back to Omaha, and the Supernovas struggle against Indy. And the 3 players, it was Londot, it was Ali Batenhorst, and Mac Pedraza, who were setting, she all pulled them, and then they haven't got a lot of playing time since then. So I think that until they get adversity, people are really struggling. Kuhn is really kind of sticking with them and riding that hot hand. And I think that's been the key to success for Omaha, has been their depth. They have a number of players who can come in off the bench and really provide that spark and change things up, whether it's at outside hitter, setter. They haven't done a lot of changing at middle blocker or libero, but they have a lot of pin hitters that can come in and make a difference.
Well, you mentioned Brooke Nuneviller, who has been the steadiest player on the Supernovas all season, but her counterpart at outside hitter, Reagan Cooper, had a great weekend last weekend, and with Cooper kind of, if she's able to develop into a steady presence, Omaha might have the best 1-2 punch at outside hitter in the PVF with Nuneviller and Reagan Cooper, another former Kansas Jayhawk who's on the Supernovas. She had 12 kills against Vegas last weekend, followed up with 15 versus Grand Rapids on Sunday. She had a long stretch in the middle of the season where she had double-digit kills. I think she's up to 13 matches this season where she's had double-digit kills. What do you see from Reagan Cooper? Because this is one of the younger players, I think, on the Supernovas roster.
Yeah, she was the PVF Rookie of the Year last year too. So I think that she's really kind of grown. And I think with her, and the person stirring all this drinks is Natalia Valentin Anderson too, who's the setter for Omaha too. I think she's done a great job of getting Cooper in good positions too. And Cooper has those stretches where she can just absolutely go off. I think after Omaha dropped that second set against Grand Rapids, they went to Cooper a lot of times. She had 3 kills in the first 6 points and really looked good. And the cool part too was both Reagan Cooper, Kelsey Payne, both former Jayhawks. That old Kansas coach Ray Bouchard was sitting courtside as well too, so they got to show off. And they both talked about. Cooper talked about after the match the important part that he played in her role and finding her love for volleyball as well too. And of course, Laura Bird-Kuhn, former Kansas assistant too. So it was a Jayhawk festival on Sunday too. So they're doing really well. Like I said, and I think Cooper has the shots and has the athleticism to make a big difference. It's just sometimes she gets into a bad rhythm or gets a bad habit that pop up here and there. And Omaha can go to Ali Batenhorst when they need her.
Well, Omaha's got a big match on Saturday. They host Orlando, who is one of the top teams in the PVF. They're tied for 3rd with Indy right now, but they're struggling a little bit. Orlando's lost 4 out of 5, and one of those matches was to Omaha down in Orlando back on March 15th. Ali Batenhorst went off in that match at opposite, had 20, or was she playing outside then, or was she playing
outside?
Yeah, had 22 kills, but we haven't really seen Ali very much lately. Again, it just kind of speaks to Omaha's depth. But if Omaha's trying to lock up the top seed for the PVF championships, which we just learned, Lincoln, this week, I think is going to be held in Vegas, right?
Yeah. Well, just outside Vegas, but at the Vegas Thrill Arena in Henderson. So I think the Vegas coach who was in
the
Omaha,
Vegas metro area.
Yeah, the Vegas greater vet. It's not going to be in the Hoover Dam, but it'll be close. So yeah, they'll be hosting that. So the top 4 teams will go there, and I think we pretty much have the top 4, unless things get really strained during the last month of the regular season play too. So it's I think Omaha is number one. They're leading it. They have the same number as Atlanta. Vibe and Omaha both have 14 wins. The Vibe has played 3 more games, so they have and 3 more losses than Omaha. Indy Ignite is also up there too, and Orlando both have the same 12-8 record. But then there's about a 3-game drop off to Vegas. So to me, it's going to be a pretty clear separation of the top 4 teams that make the playoffs. So there's kind of a gap too. Vegas is trying to do that so they can play in front of their home crowd too, but they got a lot of work to do. They play Omaha 2 more times during the final month, so they get a chance to make up some ground too. But they also, I'll say, April 1st or March 31st was the last day for player acquisition. You saw a big difference of people who are finishing their European seasons coming over, signing with PVF too. Omaha fans saw it with Stephanie Samity, who came in and made a big impact for them.
Year.
Yeah, last year too. So they moved up the deadline a little bit. There were a few player acquisitions too, but nothing on the level of last year too. Katie Baird, former Stanford outside hitter, she signed with Indy, but there hasn't been a lot of other big name siders. I know Orlando signed, they lost Georgia Murphy, who was their libero, former Oregon Duck. They signed a couple of the liberos to help out with that situation. The weirdest cut to me was Adora Ane from Orlando was cut. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but she signed with Vegas, so that hopefully will be a help for Vegas as they try to make a push for the playoffs.
All right. Yeah. Adora Anai was a great player at Utah, played against Nebraska in the NCAA tournament once upon a time. Let's move into rotation 5, which is, I guess, still professional volleyball, but still kind of in the theoretical sense. When was the announcement made that the Major League Volleyball was going to be starting next year and that the Omaha Supernovas were going to be the founding team of that? That was December?
No, it was January. It's after the first week of PVF. It was the second week of the season. So it was like mid-January when it was announced.
Okay. And here we are 4 months later, and that remains the extent of the public announcements about Major League Volleyball. Lincoln and I have kind of talked off air about, is this thing still happening? And Lincoln's been doing some sniffing around on that. Not a lot of talk has been happening, at least in front of a camera or anything, about whether this is still going to happen. Major League Volleyball, when the announcement came out, it was going to be the Supernovas, but then they were the only named franchise. I think there were some other states where they said that they had teams lined up, or maybe they were just angling to get teams.
Sacramento is the only other confirmed location.
So Sacramento, Omaha. Just speaking for me, I remain skeptical that this is going to happen, or at least going to happen next year, because if you're not sort of rolling details out and starting your marketing and getting things rolling in that direction, like, you have a very limited amount of time to do it. And there would be some fallout still to deal with, I think, with the Pro Volleyball Federation as well. So, this just seems kind of like a big amorphous mess right now. And I don't know if you know anything a little more concrete than I do.
No, that's been released. Diane Mendenhall, who's president of the Supernovas, was on Terry Pettit's podcast here recently. And she said any day now they should have more information about teams. But yeah, like I said, it should be coming up quick, hopefully, because you got to worry about player signings, which with a lot of leagues wrapping up their seasons, they're worried about what's going on next year. You got to figure out what the arenas where you're going to use, the dates for that. And you need to figure out a schedule, television, broadcasting partners. There's a lot of information that you hope that they're working on behind the scenes, but we haven't heard anything publicly since that first announcement in January.
It's like the world's greatest healthcare system. You'll have more details on it in 2 weeks. I'm surprised we haven't heard that coming out of the leadership's mouth. And I've talked to people who have been tangentially involved in either the formation of the PVF or some of the franchises there, and they've kind of privately told me, like, we would be surprised if this was the group that was able to put together a stable league and get it up and running this quickly. We could all be proven wrong, but I think until there's news about Major League Volleyball, it's fine to be skeptical on whether this thing is going to happen in 2026.
Yep. All right, let's go to rotation 6. And a little, I guess, unfortunate news, not happy news. We're wrapping up with Wisconsin announced, Grace Lopez announced that she will be missing the 2025 season. She tore her ACL. She announced that on Instagram. So she is the Wisconsin opposite hitter. She recently transferred from Miami after playing 2 years down there. Nebraska fans saw her in the NCAA tournament, know what kind of electric arm that she has, but she is going to be out for this year, which leaves a huge hole in the Wisconsin lineup. They really don't have another true opposite on their roster. Addie Horner is kind of listed as a setter opposite, but I think, she's been training more so as a setter. So really it kind of leaves a hole in their roster too. A good friend of the program, Dennis Punzel, did report that Wisconsin is going to be looking for an opposite in the portal when that opens up. And they're also going to be looking for middle blocker depth. So
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, this is a really big bummer for Grace Lopez because I believe this is her second ACL tear, and I think it's the same knee that she hurt the first time. So
yeah, in high school.
That's awful for her, and we wish her a speedy recovery. As far as Wisconsin goes, yeah, I mean, this is a program that is no stranger to working in the transfer portal, so I'm sure they've got some good contacts out there. The portal is going to open in May. And so, yeah, Wisconsin needs an opposite. They need a middle. Lindsay, I think, brought up something interesting when we were talking with her, is that with revenue sharing now, you can compensate international players in a way that you couldn't when it was just NIL. So maybe Wisconsin is looking to bring in, a player with even some professional experience in a different country who's maybe 19 or 20 years old to fill that spot. But Wisconsin's already brought in another transfer with Mimi Collier, the star Oregon outside hitter who's going to be playing for Wisconsin this year. So, Wisconsin lost a lot off of last year's team with Sarah Franklin graduating, Anna Smrek graduating. I'm probably missing some others, but they already had a lot of holes to fill. And so now there's another one that pops up unexpectedly for Kelly Sheffield's crew.
Yeah, and they have experience. You mentioned Anna Smrek, who's from Canada, but Julio Orzel is also from Europe. So they have Kelly Sheffield has connections over there. They were over there a year ago for their international tour. So we'll see what they have. But I looked at what was available on the portal, and it was pretty slim pickings right now too.
I would say to that, like, people aren't going in the portal until they have a reason to go in the portal. And if you told me that the first conversation that a high level program like Wisconsin, not necessarily Wisconsin, but any high level program has with players, like, that will happen before they get in the portal. And maybe they wouldn't go in the portal unless they knew that they would have a landing spot somewhere. So I'm sure Wisconsin's going to land someone really talented in May or June.
Yeah, and especially if teams know that Wisconsin needs an opposite, there's playing time available too. If you're not completely happy with your situation, maybe you put your name in the portal and say, "Hey, Wisconsin, I'm available. Come look at me." So
and we also know that Wisconsin has resources to commit to volleyball too, and so there's going to be some money that they're going to be able to put behind that promise.
Yeah, and I looked at was looking at their roster, what they did in the spring matches. They actually went to Hawaii for some spring matches out there too. And Mimi Collier looks like she's going to be, she did not miss a beat. She's hitting 20 kills. I mean, as a spring match, so there wasn't a complete box score, but she's putting up big numbers there too. But she could use some help, and getting a terminal opposite would do wonders for their system.
All right. So that is our show today. We're going to be back a couple more times in April. We're probably going to be doing a subscriber-only bonus episode coming up sometime in the next 2 weeks, so you can subscribe to get that content and all the extra Volleyball State content. Plus, you're just doing a mitzvah for us. You're supporting the community, and so far, so many of you have. We've been honestly blown away and humbled by the subscriber base that we already have. You guys allow us to do this, and you continue to encourage us to do this. So thank you so much for being part of the I-80 Club. You can subscribe for as low as $5 a month at patreon.com/I80 Club. You can also find the show, the free feeds, in all of your regular podcast places. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on YouTube on the I80 Club's YouTube channel. So you can't go wrong. There's no wrong door for finding the great Volleyball State content.
Yep. And be sure to follow us on social media, whether you're following the Volleyball Pod or Jeff or myself individually, by Jeff Sheldon or at Lincoln_VB. And if you had ideas, questions, comments you want to make, hit us up at volleyballstate@gmail.com. That's it for today. So thanks for listening and keep living in the Volleyball State.